Hey everyone, welcome back to The Arena. I'm Mike David, joined by Matt Kovacis, and once again, a very special guest. If you're new here, welcome to our Arena, a space in which we delve into deep conversations around people's life stories and all things health and wellness. These conversations are deep and are meant to inspire others to tap into their own vulnerabilities. I'll pass it over to Matt shortly to say hello and intro our guest. Before I do, love and appreciation to those who are listening. And if you know anyone who is not listening, do send this conversation their way if you think it could be of value. Over to you, Matt.
What's up, everybody? Today we have Heather Chan. Heather is, well, I'll just say this. I've been speaking to Heather for a few minutes before this, and she's got a very calming presence about her. So I'm going to call that out first before anything else. But Heather is the co-founder and CEO of Moonbow, a skincare brand merging traditional Chinese medicine with modern skincare science to bring harmony to both skin and spirit. And prior to that, she spent 7 years in private equity before launching Moonbow in 2024, which is already crazy that we're in 2025. How crazy is that? But so first of all, Heather, thank you so much for being here. And why don't we start with who is Heather Chan?
Well, thank you for having me, Mike and Matt. It's nice to meet you. Who is Heather Chan? I can start with where I grew up. So I grew up born and bred in Hong Kong. So I was actually in Hong Kong for the past month during Christmas break, spending time with my parents. And we grew up in a traditional household, I'd say, when I was much younger. But as time went by, we became more westernized in terms of traditions. And then ended up in the US for school, and I've been here since. I have two sisters, so my dad is the only quote unquote male in the family, and I'm the son that he never had. In Chinese tradition, and typically in Chinese culture, you either become a lawyer, a doctor, or you work in finance. So I was the sister and the child to pursue the finance route. So that was the big, that was the big relationship that I had with my dad. So that's me in a nutshell. Did that for 7 years, realized that wasn't for me, and decided to start a skincare company that is focused on traditional Chinese medicine and holistic wellness. So that's me in a nutshell. I've lived in several different states, have traveled the world, and now trying to do something I love after 8 years of figuring it out.
And so you say it kind of like nonchalant. You mentioned that you realized that prior career wasn't for you. What does that look like, and how did your upbringing maybe play a role in leading you to where you were and ultimately to the place you got now, which is exiting that industry?
Yeah, I think it was social construct really to be in the corporate and business world, and for me it was always something that I wanted to do since young, and it was ingrained in a social capacity to always do that because you want to pursue a career that that your parents would quote unquote approve. My experience in private equity, I came in extremely ignorant and naive, but it definitely taught me a lot, and Matt, I'm sure you relate. It gives you and it teaches you to have very thick skin, and being a woman in private equity, as well as a minority, and an Asian in private equity teaches you a lot. And I'm very, very thankful for that career because it has helped me understand how to build a business, and gave me that business acumen, but definitely experienced a lot of microaggressions in the industry where at first it was often ignored and I would just kind of push it off. But, in time it would accumulate and either hurt your ego or make you think, or it made me think that I wasn't valued. So you often question your identity, and question how valuable you are in the industry. And there was one example I would say. I was in Texas and I went for a conference, and I ended up having dinner with this real estate Texas mogul. And at the end of this dinner, we were eating at an Italian restaurant. He brought the waiter over and was like, "Can she have a fortune cookie for dessert?" And at that point, you can just shrug it off. And Like there's all these different instances and comments where you can't really do anything at that moment, but it just teaches you to have thick skin, and whether or not and how you want to respond to that is up to you. But it teaches you grit, and that was my experience in private equity.
How did you respond to that?
I laughed it off, and at that moment, I felt like it wasn't worth my time to explain to him how to respond to that question. You know, I read the room and read the situation. He was an older real estate mogul from Texas. He's not going to change his perspective. But in some way, too, I kind of wish, and I look back at that, and I wish maybe I said something in a more lighthearted way for him to realize that we aren't living in a world and in that culture anymore, and you have to be open to different cultures, and just being more sensitive. But I did not respond.
Sometimes silence can be the best response and the most telling response. And so, how do you land on Moonbow? I mean, you could have started any company in any industry. Obviously, you've got a lot of direct applicable experience in private equity. Why this? And how did that process look?
So, I think the identity of Moonbow actually pulls in my entire childhood and traditions, where Moonbow is a traditional Chinese medicine-inspired skincare company, and I co-founded this business with my twin sister, who's my identical twin, who lives in LA, and that's why I'm in LA all the time. So she, as a profession, is a doctor and acupuncturist, so if you ever are in LA, you should definitely visit her. And with her expertise as a doctor and my business acumen, we have always been talking about this for years on end, since COVID, I would say 2020, 2021, on starting a skincare business that incorporates Eastern herbs. So that could be something like ginseng or pearl powder or centella or orange peel, the herbs that we often eat and intake in soups, that are so beneficial from you from an internal perspective, but are also very beneficial for you on the external perspective. And the reason why we thought about creating skincare, and it's also gender neutral, so both of you can also try it. It's like the whole premise of it is that we want to share traditional Chinese medicine as an alternative medicine. And if you guys are not, if you're not aware of this medicine, I'm so happy to share more about it too. But skin is the biggest organ in your body, and is a manifestation of how you treat yourself. And it's the easiest and the biggest route to get to the most consumers, versus someone going to a doctor's office and getting acupuncture. That entry to barrier is much higher, versus buying a skincare product and understanding the benefits of it, but not just from an external but internal perspective, and the herbs that we're using. So that's how we decided on skincare. Oh, also my mom, she is a beauty fanatic, so I've grown up with a lot of beauty hacks and beauty traditions. She sat my sister's and I down when we were 8 years old and taught us a skincare routine. And every single week she would always buy us a new product or stock up our beauty closet. So I've grown up with it.
So I guess connecting the two dots that maybe we've covered so far, in your experiences living here, growing up here, and some of the aggressions, the microaggressions that you've dealt with that really take a jab at your culture. A lot of people maybe through insecurity might develop shame with their culture and maybe discomfort within their own skin, pun intended, and continue to try and appease and fit in, and
yes,
really comes at a cost of self. And what I just heard is that you actually doubled down into your culture, and you're bringing Eastern medicine here into the Western world. And there's something sort of poetic about kind of that journey in terms of your career pivot that I think has larger meaning. Just curious if you can maybe touch on how that really evolved for you. Like, did you ever come from a place of feeling shameful of who you were and where you came from and all of those things? And what was that journey like for you as a person?
You know, I'm so glad you actually brought that up, because even growing up in Hong Kong is very westernized, and what was always highly regarded was Western culture. You know, we always, thought of America as being, the perfect place where opportunities existed. You know, the popular kids in our school were Americans and expatriates from the US. And growing up, I was still a little bit, nervous or hesitant to, to share my culture, right? To eat the foods that we would eat at school. And not until I moved to the US and earned that courage and self-worth to say, I really want to show the powers and the magic of my, of my culture, did I then realize that I wanted to start this business. And when I was in private equity, I started, my stress levels were very high, and this then resulted as well in really bad gut issues. And so my gut issues really pertained and then came forth with really bad acne, and that's why my skincare journey also started then. I moved to the US as well, and as you guys know, there's a lot of processed foods in the US versus eating more whole foods in Hong Kong. Everything in Hong Kong is fresh. We would go to the wet market and buy fresh fish, fresh vegetables, everything. So the change in culture and the change in lifestyle of being, in private equity resulted in very bad gut issues. And I felt like I hit a low at some point, in my mid-20s, where I felt unfulfilled. I was working for men in the industry on a career that I wasn't passionate about. I was dealing with gut issues where I was constantly bloated. My energy levels were really low. And honestly, during COVID, that was my awakening call, where I focused on my health and wellness. And, COVID was a very self-exploratory phase for everyone from a mental and physical perspective. And I'm so grateful for that time, because honestly, that helped me from my mental perspective. I decided to meditate every single day. I started journaling, and I actually wrote in my diary a food journal of every single thing I ate every single day for 365 days to understand what really helped my gut and what didn't. And what helped my gut were these traditional Chinese medicine herbs and the broths and the soups. So that was a big journey and a 4-year path that helped me think about what I wanted to do for my career.
Did you meditate every day for a year? Is that what I heard? Is that one of the things you did?
Yes, and okay. I still do. So it's part of my daily routine. So a big part of Moonbow, it's not just a skincare brand, but it's a lifestyle brand, because traditional Chinese medicine, if you guys don't know, is a holistic medicine. And so in Western culture, right, you see doctors for different parts of your body, a bone doctor, an eye doctor, a dentist. But in acupuncture and Eastern medicine, you see a medicine as a whole. So if you have, anxiety, or you have a broken bone, or a muscle, something wrong with your muscle, you go to the fundamental cause of that issue and find the imbalance in your body to help with that issue. So if there's an imbalance, if it's it's always related to the organs. And with this holistic health, it's also an emotional medicine. And that is why I'm trying to share with everyone that your emotions are also part of your health.
Well, and I was just curious, what did meditation do for you?
Yes.
And what did you learn about yourself through that process?
Self-awareness. I was always appeasing others and not appeasing myself. It gives you a sense of peace, right? And a sense of loving yourself and being okay with everything that is going on in your life. And really trusting the process and trusting where your life takes you. So meditation has been, and thank you for mentioning that I have a very calm demeanor, because I was not like that before. I was very type A, very structured. So I would say the meditation is that is that solution for me to find self-worth and self-awareness. And I always tell myself this one mantra every single morning to help start my day on a good note.
So I saw a quote, I guess you could call it, the other day that gaining a sense of enlightenment or progress towards enlightenment is a destructive process because you're having to reveal a bunch of truths but then shed away a bunch of untruths. And when you say, like, I wasn't always like this, this being your present state, perhaps a lot more truthful to who you are, have you had that sort of reflection, and can you kind of elaborate on how much untruth you were living in as yourself, and maybe how that's maybe evolved into a more truthful state of who you really are?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I mean, the untruth is the characteristics that you don't want to think about, that you often kind of push down, and ignoring the things that you want to improve about your self-character. Like, for example, like, I would say I was more stressed, and the stress then elicited into anger and being very organized, almost in an OCD way, where these untruths are things that I never admitted to myself, right? I was a little bit more negative. I was more angry. I, put myself down a little bit more. And then when I found my self-worth and started meditating and focused on being present every day and being more grateful. So that's also one practice that I do every day. I write 3 things I'm grateful for. And realizing that, every day is worth living, that's when the truths come out, where you first identify, and admit that you want to improve yourself. And then the truths come out, and that's what you can focus on. So now it's more focusing on the positives rather than the negatives.
You said something pretty profound that we kind of just looked over, but I didn't, because I wrote it down on my little iPad over here. My new iPad, I should say. And you said, I think the skin is the manifestation of how you treat yourself.
Yeah.
I just want you to elaborate, because I heard that. I'm like, that needs to be quoted somewhere in your business, in your website, somewhere, because that is very profound, and I just want to hear more.
Thank you. That's the quote that we have actually come to terms with, and Moonbow being the quote, because that's why we decided on skincare. But in holistic health and alternative medicine and holistic wellness, everything is always connected. And if, like, every human at some point we have some form of vanity where we want to look good, right? And in order to do that, you have to treat your body and you have to nourish it. And understanding and learning how to nourish it well is the first step to improving your overall skin, right? And that's not just your face, right? It's also like your entire body. Like, for example, like, I know someone who was so stressed in private equity that his response to his skin was that he ended up getting, atopic dermatitis all over his body for months, right? So the solution to nourish your body, it could be different for every single person, but for me, it's I drink lemon water every single morning. To start my digestion. I don't drink any iced drinks. I shy away from iced coffees, smoothies, whatever. So whenever I see people drink iced coffees, especially in winter, it like gives me the kind of ick, because I'm just like, you're not doing good to your body. It actually stagnates your body, which then sometimes elicits into acne, right? So always. We need warm foods. That's how our body functions. So always eating warm foods, warm temperature, water, or room temperature water, and also drinking a lot of broth soups. So growing up, every single day, my parents would always make us soups. But these are clear soups where we would put, very beneficial herbs, from dates to goji berries to carrots and onions and corn and always a meat and always put the bone in it so that you get the nutrition, and that ultimately creates a lining in your gut that makes it super healthy. But that's like, I'm only talking about nourishing from, the food side, but you can also nourish your body from an emotional side. So that's the meditation, that's the journaling, that's the being present side of things, and your holistic balance in life and your manifestation on how you want to treat your lifestyle then shows into your outer self. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cody.
No, you got it.
Well, so I guess, while we're on the topic of, Eastern medicine versus maybe Western medicine, a lot of what you're describing is what we would probably allude to now as like functional health, which is healing from, or not really healing, but taking a preemptive approach to nourishing your body and preventing diseases and whatnot. I guess, like, what have you experienced as maybe any sort of misconceptions or biases against, some more like Eastern medicine, as you've maybe talked about it, started a business here in our world here?
I wish my sister was on because she's the doctor in this duo, but the misconceptions that is always seen in Eastern medicine, and even growing up, is that it's quote-unquote voodoo medicine. There's no proof and scientific backing behind it, because Western medicine is always proved by all these, clinical trials, and there's more scientific backing. But when you think of Eastern medicine, there are also a lot of articles that prove its worth, right? And oftentimes people, question the medicine because you can't put a number to emotional health. That's a lot harder to track. And so that's kind of the misconception that we also grew up with. Like, we grew up and we didn't learn about acupuncture until come to the United States, ironically enough. But we grew up with the lifestyle of traditional Chinese medicine, where we always saw Western medicine as more highly regarded. And I guess that's just the quick summary on what we have dealt with growing up, and as well as, creating Moonbow. And this is the reason why we want to create it, right? We want to share to the Western world and to the Western hemisphere that there is an alternative medicine that is as effective and also beneficial, that you mentioned, Mike, comes and focuses on the actual preventative basis, on how to heal yourself before the problem even comes, rather putting a Band-Aid on it, and that's usually Western medicine, right?
Yeah, and if I could, it's because when we say medicine, I think so many of us think of like a pill or a syrup, right, or a syringe. Everything you've described is, from the earth. It's within your food. It's within your emotional well-being and how you meditation. And, just a quick story, because I've, started to study and become a holistic health coach, and really all that could be rephrased as is like an Eastern medicine-esque health coach, because it's a lot of the same functional purposes that we're trying to help people develop. Well, I was going through, certain symptoms, and something that a Western doctor here had guessed was an infection and prescribed me antibiotics. And I'm taking these pills, this Western medicine, if you will, and there was almost like a placebo effect where, I had convinced myself that my symptoms were subsiding, only to then realize I had finished like 6 weeks of antibiotics and they weren't. And so I saw another doctor, a specialist, who then told me that my best approach here would be a form of physical therapy. And mind you, like, these symptoms were like internal, and like it felt like inflammation and it felt like an infection. And, me newly studying this field, I even had like a distrust or a hesitancy or like a skepticism, thinking, there's no way that stretching or like loosening this part of my body or any sort of physical therapy is going to help alleviate what I'm going through right now. And like, good enough, I've been doing some like offhand stretches. I haven't even started the actual physical therapy yet, and I've already noticed a difference. And so like, yeah, it's pretty cool to just speak to somebody who's in like the Eastern medicine space, who is saying like, yeah, we don't have like the clinical lab trials to say like this pill is going to be the cure to all. and like there's a more functional approach that sounds like something we would take with so much skepticism here.
Yeah, and you make such a good point on when we say medicine, like people often relate that to syringes and pills, and that's because that's the society that we have grown up in, and that's a society that has regarded that as the higher medicine, right? And in reality, traditional Chinese medicine has existed for over 3,000 years, and it's a proven medicine, right? It exists in Asian culture and exists in Chinese culture, and there's a reason why it exists. But, I'm not saying that Western medicine is bad at all, right? We're trying to say with Moonbow that they can coexist together, that there's beauties in both medicines, and they actually are most effective when you can coexist them together. And what makes me so happy is when I see Western doctors who are also passionate about acupuncture and Eastern medicine, and see the benefits on both, on the Eastern side too.
Well, here's my issue with a lot of peeps is not that you asked, but a lot of the skeptics, I just wish they would try. You know what I mean? Like, then you can make your decision. I don't have a ton of understanding for people that judge something without giving like it a fair chance.
Agreed.
That's all because the proof is in the pudding. I do this stuff; it works. I don't need science to back it up because I'm seeing it to be true in my life through meditation, through breath work, through eating whole foods, all of this stuff. It works, and so I wish people, because I speak to a lot of people that view me as a little bit, to your point, voodoo, and that's fine if you've tried it. If you've tried it and it's not for you, I'm totally cool. Like, I'm not here to push anything on you, but at least give it a chance.
I know, it's a society that we live in that is very stubborn, who, for me, like, I'm finding that a lot of people who, practice and who go to alternative medicine, who go get acupuncture, it's often always the last result where Western medicine didn't work with them, and they try to find all these different solutions to help their health, their health problem, and the ultimate solution was acupuncture, right? Was Eastern medicine, and that's when they find it. But why can't it be reversed, right? Why can't, people, when they, feel sick or when they have an issue, that they go to Eastern medicine as their first approach, right? And I'm just hoping that in time that'll change.
Yeah, I mean, COVID, I think of like the 4 agreements, right? It's like people have made these agreements on what to believe when it comes to medicine, and so these are pretty deeply rooted, strongly conditioned opinions and agreements that you ultimately have to break. Heather, do you come across that often, and is that part of the challenge of selling what you sell?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question because we actually haven't launched our actual products yet. We're launching it in March. But what we have been doing for the past year is being very present on social media and sharing as much educational content as possible. Because in this type, like, we're not just selling a product, we're selling a lifestyle. We're selling, I guess selling isn't the right word, but we're introducing another, the magic of this medicine, and that's what we've been focusing on. I'm hoping and I'm anticipating that people won't question our products, because the community that are already interested in our products are the holistic gurus, are the holistic and wellness junkies, are the ones who connect to the Eastern traditions, right? The Asian Americans, as well as, the alternative medicine, junkies as well. So that's like our target customers, and hoping that they won't question it, because I don't question it.
And what's it like? We kind of glossed over it, but I want to come back to it, because I think there's probably a lot of people that are in a role or a job that they're unhappy with. What's it like to leave such a lucrative position? Obviously, to jump into a bunch of unknown. I would love to just hear your perspective and maybe some of the challenges that you experienced both externally from family, whatever it might be, as well as internally?
Oh, God. It was so hard to leave. I guess let's just talk about the comfortability of, they say, the golden handcuffs, where you just cannot leave the job because you're so comfortable with what you're getting paid, right? And, it just gives you that flexibility to do what you want to do and what you want to love. But in the end, you're just not happy because I came in every single day staring at two huge monitors, day in, day out, doing something that I didn't love. And the biggest challenge, I would say, like on that side, is the comfortability and the money standpoint. But two, it's your self-worth, right? And it's, your identity. And my identity was that I was in private equity and it looks good from the outside, right? You want to feel important. And that was the biggest challenge to leave. And
you might even have, if it's anything like me, like, oh my gosh, Heather, you have such a good job. Like, I'm so, and that almost puts like an added level of like,
yes.
Oh gosh, like I'm so at conflict with what people are telling me.
Exactly. And the third, of course, is appeasing my traditional Chinese parents. It was never in our culture and never growing up that being an entrepreneur was a career that you could do. And so a big part of me starting my business was also getting, quote unquote, that approval from my dad, right? That it was okay to start something new. And I started something new, and a big part of last year was all the pre-launch, right? Getting the formulations right, getting the packaging right, finding your suppliers, just really focusing on the supply chain. So it was all about the product. This year will be all about the consumers. And so that challenge and that unknown has been a big part of my self-identity. And I talk about this. I'm starting to talk about this on my social media platforms too. But it's the it's just your self-worth and what's that word, that syndrome.
Imposter.
Thank you.
Got it.
Yes, it's the imposter syndrome that I have been trying to overcome. Because it's like, I'm the founder of this company that hasn't existed yet. So what's my identity? Am I, when I go to conferences, am I a founder of the skincare company that hasn't existed? Am I a founder who's trying to educate people about an alternative medicine that they haven't tried, right? I left, a very lucrative, sexy job to start something that people don't even know exists, number one, and two, will it be successful? So will my identity then be tied to the success of the brand? So it's really, that struggle of who you are as a person that I'm still trying to deal with. And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? Obviously, my company will be successful and I'm going to make it successful, but I often need to, remember that your identity can't always be tied to your job. You have to find yourself and find who you are. And for me, when I was in private equity, it was this Asian girl in private equity who lived in New York City,
So like part of those golden handcuffs is maybe not just the comfort of the income and the appearance of it, but also being the approval from your parents. What advice do you have for people that are maybe reluctant or staying cuffed, so to speak, mostly because of fear of parent approval? And like, how would you advise somebody to go about that?
And what would you have done if your parents didn't approve? That was going to be my question.
I think I would have still done it, In the end and ultimately, we only have one life. And for those, for me though, I am very grateful that I'm in a position where I can start my own company. And starting your own company is not something a lot of people can do because of either their social standards or just like where they are in terms of opportunity. I know a lot of people who are in Hong Kong who have to do the job that they do day in, day out just to survive. And so I almost see starting a company as a luxury. So if you have that luxury, then my advice is to take that leap of faith and just do it. And the biggest investment is yourself. And instead of putting it on something else, like your job, put that investment and your trust and self-worth on who you are. And try it out for a couple years. And if it doesn't work out, then you can always go back to your prior career. I'm almost seeing this as my quote-unquote business school, so to speak, to see how it goes in the next couple years, and then figure it out. But that's my biggest advice. Like, we are ultimately our own self and adults at this point, that yes, you can appease your parents at some point, but always listen to yourself.
And you've mentioned self-worth a lot, and it's a word that's come up. So I'm just curious, what does self-worth mean to you, and and I think you've also mentioned finding your self-worth. So how did you find your self-worth, and how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's in the end effectively just another way of being confident in yourself and loving who you are. And I often struggled with that when I was in the finance industry, often being put down a lot. And during COVID, that's when I focused on my quote-unquote self-worth, and how I became confident was writing every single day in my journal how I felt, what I was looking forward to, what I was grateful for, the challenges and things that didn't go well, and putting goals and writing goals every single day that are achievable, but also writing long-term goals. So I started this thing a couple years ago where every single year I would buy a new moleskin notepad that had the year on it, and every single year I would just have the same notebook and write all these goals that I would have for the year. And I would look back at it every quarter to see if I have achieved some of these goals. But those are more long-term quantitative, right? For me, the self-worth comes from, the small goals that I have in my everyday life. And for today, for example, it's being, a goal that I had today on the career side was be productive, but on my personal growth is being kind, right? And I reflect on that before I go to bed, and that effectively helps with my self-worth, that I am improving myself. That was a little bit That was a little bit long-winded, so thank you.
I'll say you're very kind. You got, like I said, we have a lot of therapists on this show, and Emily pointed it out on the last one we had on, but therapists have a very calming, peaceful presence, and you've got that. And I think that can attest to the work that you've done on yourself.
Thank you. And speaking of therapy, it's actually so interesting because I only just started therapy a couple months ago. It was always on my to-do list, and it was in my 2024 goals to finally start therapy. And it was something that I always wanted to do, and it's something that everyone should do, right? You shouldn't do it just because you're reaching that rock bottom where you do effectively need help. But it's always a good outlet to have, where someone can have that, non-subjective and objective view to give you the professional advice. And it's so funny because I started therapy just recently, and it has helped me just be more aware of my emotions, and I do it more so for my emotional health. Everyone does therapy for their emotional health, but it just has taught me to think of ways in different perspectives. And I'd say that it is helping, but I've never done it.
So one of the themes that I feel like I've gathered from this conversation and getting to know you, you started by mentioning how you were like figuratively like your father's son. You went into private equity. One of your goals was to be productive, but now it's becoming more kind. Wondering if there's like a shift from a more like masculine to a more feminine energy that you've had to learn to really unlock for yourself. And I think people sometimes we can think that you're either one or the other, and once you're one, you should not tap into the other. Do you have a take on some of that you can help impart with us in terms of like how you've learned to really embrace maybe more of a feminine energy and how that serves you?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because I'm definitely feeding to my feminine energy now. I didn't have that opportunity back when I was in finance, right? The feminine energy, number one, is speaking more about woman problems that you deal with, day in, day out. It's creating a skincare company. That's the feminine side of it, being more emotional. And I think oftentimes, the reason why maybe I was angry more so in my finance career was because I kept my emotions in my chest and didn't find a solution on how to exert that energy somewhere else. Versus now where I'm aware of my emotions, but putting that in a different outlet, whether that's meditation, whether that's working out. I work out almost every day. That's like my decompression, right? But it's also funny because you talk about masculinity, and I feel like I'm also masculine in some way, but oftentimes when women are masculine, they are often seen as being a bitch or rude, and it's that struggle that I also had in finance, where when you're this really strong, powered woman, you were often perceived as that mean woman in that industry versus men who are so confident and so masculine. They look up, people look up to them. So it's dealing with these dichotomies of being a woman and taking advantage of your feminine side and just being confident about that, but also sharing that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to play into that part. And it's also okay listening to your body. We go through our rhythms and our monthly cycles, which men will never understand, unfortunately. But it's being okay with the hormones and being okay with the emotions and how you feel every single day. Like on the days we have periods, I lift very heavy and I love to lift, and I just have to, on those days, I just have to tell myself I can just go for a walk and it's okay. Just listen to your body, and being more in tune with it is the femininity that I definitely want to continue exploring.
Yeah, so you mentioned, I think in the description of Moonbow, it references bringing harmony to both skin and spirit. Mm-hmm. Why was it important to reference and spirit? How are those things interrelated, and why was that important?
Yeah, because the whole mission of Moonbow is harmonizing. It plays with the message of duality. So Moonbow is actually a rainbow around a moon, and it's a very rare occurrence. So next time you look up in the sky, it's like this glow, this beautiful rainbow glow, and it happens less than 10% of the time. But it plays with the duality of East and West, traditions versus innovations, Western culture and Eastern culture. And it's harmonizing all of these cultures, but harmonizing medicine. And the reason why I say spirit is because spirit is a big ethos of traditional Chinese medicine, right? It's one of the pillars of traditional Chinese medicine to nourish your spirit. And that's why that's part of our mission. And how you nourish your spirit can be from a beauty perspective, right? The herbs that we're putting into our products can be the herbs that you can nourish your spirit with. By eating, by your lifestyle changes. And that's what we're trying to, share to the world, that your spirit is so important.
And, okay, so why should men care more about their skin? And can we just, let's summarize this for any men listening to this, myself included, that I don't know where to start. I'd like to start caring. I do care about my skin. It is more important. But up until, I think I did a quick Google search and I came across, grapeseed oil for the face, coconut oil for the skin.
That is so fascinating.
That's all I got, and I'm trying to make more of it's important to me, but just help me out here.
It's more than just a vanity, but what's really interesting is that Asian men, my dad has a skincare routine, and he's always had a skincare routine. It's just ingrained in culture for men in Asia to always have that skincare routine and take care of their skin because it's that vanity standpoint. But I guess for you, you, Matt, and Mike, I'm not sure if you have a skincare routine. having a skincare routine is important, not just so you can help your skin issues, right? If you have, if you have dry skin, if you have oily skin, you can help manage that, right? But for me, it's important to introduce skincare to men because it's not just about skincare, it's more of a lifestyle change, right? That effectively helps your day in and day out routine. I'm sure you both have morning routines, right? Maybe you guys meditate, maybe you guys go to the gym, maybe you guys drink coffee, but part of the routine that I want to implement and share is that you can also put that skincare routine, because for me, my skincare routine is a way for me to slow down, for me to push all the problems aside and to focus on a routine that's almost like a meditative state. And if that's a solution that works for you, then do it. But also, I do truly believe that men should focus on their skincare routine, because I have men in my life where their skin isn't the best and they can always improve on it. And they just wash their face and don't put lotion or just lather whatever lotion they put. But there are harmful ingredients in skincare, in products that aren't meant for your skin, that can either clog your pores or that aren't eco-friendly or paraben-free. And there's a lot of chemicals out there that aren't healthy for your skin to absorb. So buying the right products that are also at a fair price is very important.
Yeah, well, I'll say, I to your point, I would say, like, I used to have really bad acne, but I was chronically stressed. I was fatigued, relying on Adderall to stay awake. And it showed. And as I've taken care of myself more holistically, a lot of that acne has gone away on its own. And now I'm kind of at the point where I want to take it to the next level, to kind of what you alluded to, which is where I've started with the grapeseed oil, if you will, and the coconut oil. We're still moving, but I'd like to continue that. Maybe I'll do a get ready with me men version with some skincare.
Please do. I will send you products. So let me know your address, and I will send you products when we have products. But it's an easy 3-step routine. It's a face wash, and then it's a serum. And the serum that we have a hero ingredient in all our products called wild chrysanthemum. It's like this beautiful yellow flower that we actually drank in teas whenever we would go to dim sum. But chrysanthemum is very anti-inflammatory, so it helps with, inflammation on your skin. And for example, if you guys have eye styes, you can always put this flower in your eye and it helps relieve that. But the serum, for example, that you can try, I'm sure maybe you just do like a face wash and then a moisturizer, but the serum helps with, creating more of that strong barrier to your skin that'll effectively help you, help prevent from getting acne or from getting whatever issues you have, to create that barrier. And so we have orange peel, which is a very strong Eastern herb. It's basically the peel of an orange, but in Chinese culture, we would always put this in soups and we would drink it. And it's a natural derivative of vitamin C, and it's a more gentle version. And vitamin C sometimes makes people break out because it's a very strong active ingredient. And for us, we're really focusing on a gentle introduction to traditional Chinese medicine herbs and a gentle introduction to a skincare routine.
It's done. I'm doing a get ready with me. You inspired me.
Please.
It's gonna be interesting, because I'm gonna have no idea what I'm doing, but maybe it'll make for good content. I don't know.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. To wrap this up, Heather, we ask all our guests, what are you most proud of, just in life more generally?
I'm really honestly proud of leaving my past career. I went through this, the quote-unquote term called a life quake, right? Where it's that earthquake in your life where you feel like these moments in your life happen and it's such a negative impact on you, but in the end it's actually more of a positive outcome in the long run. I am definitely proud that I went through this quote-unquote life quake and completely, left my past career and my past life of not being in tune with my body and going through this holistic wellness route and starting something I love. And, I'm just happy and proud and also grateful that I can do what I love. And that's what will nourish me for the rest of my life.
Wow, what a way to wrap up. Heather Chan, everyone. Heather, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.